The Bible is one of the most important works for understanding the foundation of Western civilization. But it wasn't written with our culture in mind, but with the cultural context of the ancient Near East. And unfortunately, many ancient Near Eastern concepts are lost on modern Westerners when they try to read the Bible. If we want to understand the biblical text, we first need to understand how people of the ancient Near East thought. When we think of ancient people, we tend to assume they were asking the same questions we ask about our reality, and that is not necessarily true. Different cultures revolve around different ideas and different questions of importance. So the first thing we need to remember when we read the biblical text is ancient people didn't necessarily care about the same things you care about. There is obviously some overlap, but given their limited technology and understanding of science, different questions would have been in their minds. When reading the Bible, we ought to remember they had no knowledge of the actual structure of the solar system, let alone the universe, a deep understanding of biology, physics, or neurology. Topics like gravity or the Big Bang were issues that did not even pop into their minds. Yet we have knowledge of these things thanks to modern science. So that gives us a different mindset than an ancient author. So we should try our best to limit our understanding of modern concepts, like topics within science and technology, when dealing with an ancient text. These people seem to have been more interested with questions of theology, ethics, order, and functions, more so than material aspects of the universe, like what we focus on today. As Clark Pinnock says, "The lesson to be learned here is the principle of allowing the Bible to say what it wants to say and not impose our imperialistic agendas onto it, squeezing it into our molds." Another important thing we need to remember is translators do leave a lot out, simply because of linguistic and cultural barriers. The text you are reading in your modern language, next to your modern dictionary, using your modern grammar, is not what the ancient author wrote. It is a translation of the gist of what the author was saying, that is 10 to 12 cultures removed from you. You can get the general message, story, flow, and the basic beliefs of what they had, but that is only the tip of the iceberg. We can't expect to know everything about an ancient culture from just translations. This is why scholarship is so important for understanding the ancient languages, cultures, and customs. It gives us a deeper and better picture of what the Bible is saying, whereas translations lack an in-depth understanding of what is fully going on. A good example is how English is a noun-dominated language, whereas Hebrew is a verb-dominated language. In English, a verb is an action, whereas a noun is a person, place, or thing, an object void of an action. But in Hebrew, verbs are typically words for the action of a persona, place, or thing, and nouns are often based on a three-letter root shared with a verb, so that noun names are based on their action, function, or related process they are involved in. So if you were to say something like, "I want that thing over there" in Hebrew, you more or less would be saying something like, "I want that desired over there." Actions, processes, and functions dominate the language of Hebrew, whereas objects and subjects dominate the language of English. This reflects more of what our cultures are focused on. We are more concerned with what things are, what properties they have, and what things are doing. Ancient Hebrews were more concerned with processes and functions, and what things or people were going along with these processes or functions. Semitic languages also follow far different literary expectations. Ancient Hebrew is very limited in vocabulary, which creates a scope and meaning through an abnormally high number of root adaptations. So the same root can have all sorts of different meanings, grammatical functions, and literary double meanings depending on its supplied vowels and morphology. So because of this, ancient Hebrew has a built-in structure that cannot be perfectly replicated by a less ambiguous language like English in translation. Hebrew is rich in double meaning, wordplay, and synonym play. English often lacks this, and sentences that contain double meaning are rare and typically used for puns. This is not so in ancient Hebrew, and often passages, or even individual words, are meant to have multiple meanings. So this is a good starting place before we dive in depth into the Hebrew texts and the cultural background they were written in. There are many more issues and social concepts we need to go over, but we need to start with these basic points so we can have a better understanding of the Hebrew Bible. In future videos, we will look more specifically at different cultural concepts and the theological and cultural aspects of sections of the Bible.